Good afternoon. This is Under One Roof MTL on CJAD 800. We are demystifying home ownership 1 week at a time. My name is Robin Flynn, joined as always in studio by Martin Spalding of Fred and Martin Mortgages. How are you, Martin?
I'm great.
Let's try that again. How are you, Martin?
I am great.
Wonderful. Fred is not with us this week. He's here in spirit, and we will try and do him proud.
He is.
Also joined by LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties. How's it going, LJ?
It's going great. How are you doing?
I am good. I got a decent parking spot. I feel like that always impacts my mood when I show up here.
That's what's up. Love it.
Exactly. If I have to park 6 blocks away, I get cranky.
Doesn't take much, right?
No, to make me cranky? That's a fact.
Hard to make you happy.
Oh, that's true. A good parking spot, and my kid slept in this morning.
Ooh,
One
double
more-
win.
And I got berries on sale, so my kid is happy.
The
The
trifecta.
trifecta of toddler mom life.
We're going to go buy a 649 now.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good idea. Let's start with our trivia question of the week. This is brought to you by Felix and Norton Cookies. I found out that a friend of mine who had a baby recently, she was craving Felix and Norton Cookies throughout her pregnancy and named her child Felix.
That's what's up.
That is what's up. That is the ultimate endorsement for Felix and Norton Cookies. Our question this week: what is the maximum amount a landlord can legally request for a security deposit for a residential lease in Quebec?
Whoa.
If you think you know the answer, 514-790-0800.
We're looking over at LJ right now.
Yeah, everybody's looking at each other. And please do include your name so we can give you a shout out when you win. Lots of stuff in the news this week. A lot of Canadians are having trouble making their payments, it seems. Did you guys see Equifax release their Consumer Trends and Insights report? According to Equifax, 1.4 million consumers missed a credit payment in the first quarter of this year, which is an increase of over 140,000 consumers. Specifically, younger Canadians seem to be having a hard time making their payments. So what are you guys seeing? Obviously, you're looking at credit reports all the time, Martin, when you're helping people get approved for mortgages. Is this something that people are struggling with right now?
Well, I was expecting this question, so I just wanted to backtrack and just look at the week in review, just for fun.
Yeah.
Right? This is just 1 week in review. So on Tuesday, we have King Charles in Ottawa. He's working the crowds like a rock star. On Wednesday, the U.S. Court of International Trade quashes Trump's tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
On Thursday, the U.S. Federal Appeals Court reinstates the tariffs while they challenge the decision. On Friday, Trump, while giving a speech, decides to increase the tariffs on steel and aluminum from 25 to 50%. Then we have Elon Musk, who's stepping away from Doge.
Yep.
And then this morning on CBS Sunday Morning is criticizing the administration's decisions regarding the big, beautiful bill, because a lot of the work that Elon Musk did with Doge was for naught, because the big, beautiful bill increases the American deficit to $40 trillion. So you take a step back and you say, credit payment delinquencies are on the rise. No wonder.
Yeah.
And this is just a week, and I could have gone a lot deeper than it's. So, yes, I think that Canadians, because of the instability that we're living through over the last 3 to 6 months, just makes it very difficult to take a decision. You know, should I invest? Should I divest? Should I increase my inventories? Should I change my modus operandi of my business? And so, yes, delinquencies are up, especially with young Canadians, 35 and under, and low-income families. And where the delinquencies are up which are areas of concern, are mortgages, car payments, and credit cards. So you sort of take a step back, and so by doing the week in review, no wonder people are struggling right now.
Yeah, you mentioned car payments. So the report found that missed auto loan payments with consumers under the age of 35 had increased by 30% over the same period last year. I think you've said this before. I don't know if it was you, LJ, or you, Martin, that when people have to decide which payment to make, they're usually going to choose their housing payment. They're going to pay their rent or their mortgage payment. That will always be the priority. You need a roof over your head. If you miss a credit card payment, you miss a car payment, you can still, if you're going to take a hit for it, but housing is always the priority, right?
100%. Well, we see people make that decision all the time, and that's the nice thing about being a landlord is that typically when the going gets tough, the first thing that people, or the last thing that people will obviously divert to is the housing, and that's where you're typically protected on. But it's tough times out there, and we're seeing it more and more all over the place. I mean, credit's dropping all over the place. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Equifax, and it's funny. I think we should do actually a show on Equifax next weekend. TransUnion and Equifax. I'm actually doing a workshop on Equifax this week, so
Cool.
I'll have some relevant data for our show next Sunday. But by not making payments, that can be devastating as to your credit report and your credit score. And if your credit report and your credit score go down to a certain level, then you're going to have a lot of trouble renewing your mortgages, getting credit, and so on and so forth. So if there's one piece of advice that I could give this morning is make your payments. Find a way to make your payments. And don't wait too long to address the situation. A lot of people let a mole turn into a mountain, and then they call us and say, what do we do? And at that junction or at that time, it makes it a lot more challenging for Fred and I to actually be able to refinance and find solutions so you can pay down your debt and you can get back on track. But the most important thing, the thing that affects your credit score the most, are late payments or non-payments.
Yeah, make those payments. This is interesting. I saw this week a report that found that more and more Canadians are carrying mortgage debt into retirement. I feel like typically your house was paid off when you retired, so your monthly expenses were quite low. But it seems like more and more people are choosing to carry that debt forward. Why is this happening? Is it because they're refinancing? Are they helping their kids purchase properties with equity from the home? Are they retiring earlier? What's going on here?
I'd say it's a variety of those things. The reality is homes are no longer worth $75,000, right? So paying down that $75,000 original mortgage balance, if you will, is a lot more difficult these days than it was in the past. I think that we are seeing more and more families give some money to their heirs, to the kids and whatnot. So you're seeing a bit of that. Some people who have gotten into different business opportunities and took on a second mortgage, bought a few more properties, maybe took on a bit more leverage. They wanted to get a vacation home, maybe a cottage, stuff of that nature, and they said, yeah, I'll just roll it into the property. So I think it's the fact that properties have gotten more expensive, so mortgages are obviously just larger, take longer time to pay down, combined with all the other facts that you mentioned as well.
Is it smart to carry that kind of debt into retirement, Martin? Is that something you would do, or would you want to make sure your home was paid off first?
Well, I think everybody's dream is to retire with their principal residence mortgage paid off. There are some people that actually choose to continue to have a mortgage because they have found another way to use their liquidity to generate additional income. But I still believe that the best investment you can make is in your principal residence, because if you ever sell, you don't pay capital gains. We repeat this over and over and over again, but I think that the best investment you can make in Canada is to buy a home. And if you're looking to retire at 60, 65, 70, it is such a windfall to retire without a mortgage.
Yep. If you're not sure if now is the right time to buy your first home, if you have questions, give LJ a call, 514-500-4040. He'll help you figure it out. Still to come, what is a reverse mortgage and how can it help you achieve your goals?
Are you house rich and cash poor? It might be a good time to consider a reverse mortgage. This is your Mortgage Minute. If you're 55 or older, own your home. A reverse mortgage lets you unlock tax-free cash from your equity with no need to sell or make monthly payments. Whether you're managing rising costs, helping your kids, or simply looking for financial breathing room, this could be the smartest move you make in retirement. Reverse mortgages aren't a last resort. They're a flexible tool to help you stay in your home and retire on your own terms.
Right before the show, Martin,
Yes.
Joey Elias asked me, what are you guys talking about on the show today? I said, we're going to be talking about reverse mortgages. He's like, isn't that the Tom Selleck thing I see on TV all the time? Chip reverse mortgages. I said, it's a little different in Canada. It works a little differently.
No, it's a lot different. I mean, it's what you see. If you watch Heather Hitchcock's every morning from Monday to Friday, there's an ad for Chip reverse mortgages.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about today.
So what's the difference?
We're talking about reverse mortgages in Canada, not in the United States. Very different product.
It's less predatory here. It's not at all predatory, actually.
Well, it's typical Canada, right?
Yes.
We're regulated. And the last thing that a reverse mortgage lender wants to do is to kick you out of your house.
Yep.
And that's the misconception. It's a tool like any other tool. There are pros and cons. Whether you're signing for a traditional mortgage or a B lender or a private lender, there are pros and cons to each. And so if you're signing for a regular mortgage, you ask yourself, should I go fixed? Should I go variable? There are upsides and downsides to both. If you're going with a B, you need an exit strategy so you can get yourself back to a conventional. If you're signing with a private, same thing. You need an exit strategy. With a reverse mortgage, it's a strategy. It's a tool. It's a product that you can use to subsidize your lifestyles going into retirement. Because let's face it, if you're living on the two pensions that are offered in Canada, Quebec and the federal pension, and let's say you've got a little bit of a pension from where you used to work, sometimes, we're talking about, would it be nice to retire without a mortgage? Well, when you go into retirement, if you were a salaried employee, if you owned your own business, sometimes that cash flow dries up very quickly. And all of a sudden you say, I'm short $1,500 a month. I'm short $2,000 a month. But you're sitting in a house that's worth $500,000 or $600,000. You've got no mortgage. Why not tap into that equity to subsidize your lifestyle? Or you can give an early inheritance to your kids by gifting them their down payment so they can create wealth for themselves. So it's a product like any other. It's not meant for everybody, but it is a solution if you find yourselves at the end of the month a little bit short. Because the last thing you want to do is to load up your credit cards. So we have a couple clients that we're working with right now, and they've got lines of credit, they've got credit cards. So what we're going to do is we're going to give them a reverse mortgage, get them a reverse mortgage. We're going to consolidate all that debt. And what they're going to do is they're going to pay themselves in equity from their home $1,000, $1,500 a month just to make ends meet.
I love this show so much because I've learned so much doing this show with you guys. And I was having dinner with a friend last week and she was talking about retirement and how she's not saving up as much as she'd like to. And she's approaching 40 and getting nervous. I really need to start thinking about this. And I was like, oh, but you own your own home. So a reverse mortgage could be an option for you. And she was like, what's a reverse mortgage? And then I explained it to her.
It's crazy, right?
Right. She had never even heard of it. And then she was telling me how her line of credit was getting quite high because she'd recently hired a nanny. Anyway. And I said, well, when your house comes up for renewal, when's the maturity date? And she was like, oh, I think it's next year. I'm like, well, you could refinance and pay off that line of credit.
I think Robin's going to get her license pretty soon.
But it was so cool to be able to share that information. So I wanted to say thank you for that. But when it comes to reverse mortgages, she wanted to know the specifics about how it actually works. And I said, listen to the show this week. So you decide you want a reverse mortgage. How does that work? Your house has to be paid off. Are you making monthly payments? What are the mechanics of it?
Okay. So the first thing you're going to do, they're going to appraise your house. So let's say your house is worth $600,000 and you still have a mortgage on it. So what they're going to do is they're going to consolidate the current mortgage that you have into your reverse mortgage. And then what they're going to look at is they're going to look at your age. So obviously the older you are, the more equity you can access. And then because you're only allowed to get 55%, so you have to be 55 plus in terms of age, but you can only access 55% of the home's value in equity, if that makes sense. And so there's always equity left in the house. And so once they've evaluated how much you qualify for, and you don't qualify based on income. So when you're getting a traditional mortgage, you need to qualify on income because they need to show you've got the capacity to make your mortgage payments. And so what is a real challenge for people who are living on fixed incomes is they don't have the capacity to make those payments anymore. So what you do is you identify how much you can pull out of your house. You don't have to take it all. And then you can set it up so you can take a lump sum to get going. So if you got to fix the roof or you got to do whatever, some home renovations, and then you can pay yourself the set amount that you're looking to pay yourself on a monthly basis, and you only pay interest on the money that you've pulled out. But you don't have to pay the interest. What they can do is they can capitalize the interest. In other words, you can go payment free. So you don't have to renew, you don't have to pay back the money that you're pulling out, and you don't have to pay the interest. So just take a step back. All of a sudden you're on a fixed income and you've got a traditional mortgage and you're making those payments. You got to pay your city and school taxes. You got to pay condo fees if it's a condo. You have to pay for snow removal. You have to pay. And you just don't have that capacity to pay anymore. Well, what they do is they consolidate the mortgage that you have into a reverse mortgage. You extract whatever money you need and you don't have to pay it back. So all of a sudden your cash flow overnight becomes a lot better, and you can actually live the lifestyle that you have earned in retirement without having to worry am I going to make those payments at the end of the month?
Wow, so that'd be a good option for, as we mentioned before, more and more retirees carrying mortgage balances into retirement.
We've got a ton of people calling us now because, people are living longer. I mentioned before, the provincial and the federal just don't generate enough revenue for you to be able to live on. And that often when we get these questions is it really tax-free? And you go, yeah, it's tax-free. So whatever equity you pull out is not considered as an income, is not considered as revenue. So the money that you're pulling out, so let's say you need an extra $1,000 or $1,500 a month, you're not taxed on that. Obviously, you're paying interest on that, but you're not taxed on that. So there are a lot of pros and cons when it comes to a reverse mortgage. So like I said before, it's not for everybody, but the best thing you can do is just give us a call. We'll analyze your file and you'll take the decision. We're not forcing anything on anybody, but for a lot of people, this is the ideal solution to be able to sustain the lifestyle that you want to sustain and also stay in your house.
I want to loop LJ in here because you had mentioned that you're not withdrawing more than 55% of the home's equity. Is that maybe to protect against the home's value decreasing, even though that never happens?
It's effectively to protect the banks, right? We know that all of our Canadian banks and lenders are very, very risk averse. So in order to protect them, what they do is, in this case, they put that 55% threshold so that even with the interest that's accruing, even if interest rates go up, even with all these other factors, given the fact that you're starting off with the 45% of that property's value in equity protected, you should never really get to beyond that 80%, right? We assume that properties will go up in value, typically about 3% annually. Yes, some years are stronger, some years are not as great, but nevertheless, when you factor that 3% in, they have enough cushion to protect themselves from that interest rate growth, and if they take it all in one shot as well, right? So it's really just a protection plan for the lenders.
That makes a lot of sense. If you want to find out what your lending options are, you're curious if a reverse mortgage is right for you, get in touch with Fred and Martin. Go to their website, fredandmartin.com. Their phone numbers are there, and you can even schedule an appointment with them directly on the website. Very cool. This is Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. I'm Robin. That's Martin. That's LJ. We are with you until 1 p.m. We still have a lot to get to because moving day is exactly 1 month away. Less than 1 month if you count from midnight. Time is ticking. It can be a very stressful time of year if you are somebody who chose not to renew your lease and you haven't found somewhere new to live yet. Things could be getting pretty scary. LJ, why is July 1st, first of all, moving day in Quebec? This isn't a thing in the rest of the country, is it?
It's not a thing in the rest of the world.
So is it because we have such harsh winters here that everybody kind of agreed to move on July 1st?
So I've done this research a couple different times now, and the reality is the National Moving Day used to be on May 1st, and that was working great until people realized that, wait, we have kids, and kids have school, and we should probably do this more in line with the school year so that we're not trying to disrupt kids in the middle of the school year because you might have to change schools and whatnot. So because of that, it ended up getting pushed back to July 1st. Originally, May 1st was because of the long winters, and now the July 1st is to long winters plus the schooling that's happening right now. So that's why we're now on July 1st as an official National Moving Day, and you used to not be able to evict people until that National Moving Day. So when it was May 1st in the middle of winter, we didn't want people out in the streets in the middle of winter. So there's a lot of history behind it.
Interesting. Very interesting. When you explain it like that, it makes perfect sense. I'm like, how come they don't do it everywhere else? You're not uprooting kids in the middle of the school year. That makes perfect sense to me. Anyway, one of the things that Quebec does right. Okay, so what do people need to worry about as we get closer to moving day? Hopefully you've already found somewhere else to live, but if you haven't...
Because I can tell you that pizza and beer just doesn't do it anymore, and don't count on your friends to show up to move the boxes. So make sure you find yourself either a truck, some family members, and you've done your packing because time is ticking.
Yeah. I remember moving once in my early 20s where I packed everything the night before. I was up till like 3 a.m., slept a couple hours, then moved the next morning. But I was 21 and I could do that. Okay, but you have to find somewhere to live. You have to have somewhere to go when you vacate your previous property. Is this something that people are coming to you with, LJ? At what point do people come to you and say, hey, I got to find somewhere new to live?
So this year's actually been surprisingly slow. And I say that because typically we'd say that 3 months before everybody has decided what they're going to do. And then over the course of that next month or two, people are making decisions. But for the first time in many years, for the last 2 months, which is usually crazy for us on the rental front, people have been visiting, but have been very nonchalant, non-decisive. Be like, yeah, I'm seeing another 5 places over the next 2 weeks. we'll see what happens. We'll get back to you. No problem.
Wow.
Whereas usually it was like, come see it. Do you like it? Yes, no, tomorrow kind of thing. And we'd have decisions made and off we would go. So people have been very much slow playing this, which has been very surprising to me. However, in the last week, 2 weeks almost, we've seen a huge uptick in people making decisions, people kind of finding places and deciding on them. But there's still a lot of inventory on the market right now on our end, to be quite honest. I think we've got about 45 units for rent right now in general. And probably about 10 of those already have offers and are moving. But nevertheless, it's been slow comparatively, which has been very interesting to see. So yes, finding a unit is obviously part one. Part two is making sure that you have your insurance in place, making sure that you've taken over the hydro account if you already found your place, making sure that you have your movers booked, ideally more than just a truck, movers, depending obviously how many things you're moving and whatnot. And then if there's any work to be done, paint, adjustments, fixes, that you have those things lined up so that you're not waiting deep into your tenancy to start taking care of those things. And then after that, making sure that any other adjustments, bell, hydro, TV, all that kind of stuff is taken care of so that you're ready to move in and start working and live your life and enjoy it.
There's always that awkward part in the morning where, you know, you want to move into your property, but the previous tenant hasn't moved out yet. And it's almost this domino effect, right? Like if you only move at 7, but the next guy's not moving till 9, I mean, do you have to factor that into your moving costs if you've got the moving truck sitting outside waiting for an hour?
100%. And movers charge by the hour, right? So you want to make sure that you've spoken to the previous tenants, so that you guys have coordinated who's going what at what time. No matter how much planning you do, there's inevitably going to be usually a little hiccup somewhere along the way. But nevertheless, just plan as best you can so that you can avoid any additional costs.
There's always that battle around the elevator. So if you've got people moving in, people moving out, and there's only 1 or 2 elevators, make sure that you get your window and make sure that window is respected, because you can show up and if you don't have access to the elevator, have fun going up those 5 flights of stairs with a king-size bed. That's
been a big thing. Whenever you're moving into a condo tower, making sure that you reserve the elevator. There's fees associated to this. There's usually somebody supervising the move, but you want to make sure that you've done the reservation, that everything's ready to go, that the elevator's padded up so that you don't do any damage, obviously, and that the elevator's yours. You can use it for the 1, 2, 3, 4 hour span that you need it, and there's no stress because a lot of these buildings have up to 500 units. That's 500 family units moving up and down. You need the time and the space.
So as a property manager, what are your sort of top 5 things that you prepare for the big day?
Our big preparation is making sure that everybody knows where they're going, how they're getting there, how they're getting their keys, making sure obviously that we already have their proof of hydro takeover, their insurances, so that we know that we're legally protected for everything. But the big thing is making sure that everyone knows when and what time and that it's all being taken care of in that sense. So there's no crossover.
What help is available if, you know, somebody hasn't found something within their budget? Everything that they can find is outside their budget, and July 1st is quickly approaching. Are there assistances or programs available for low-income households who can't find housing in time?
My understanding is that there are. I'm not super well versed on them. I'll be very honest. We work with private individuals who are looking to rent out properties and whatnot. I have heard adverts on the radio helping those. I've even seen signs outside near my house with different programs available to them. But yeah, they're out there. You just have to Google them and you'll come across them.
Are there any limits to rent increases on July 1st? If there's a changeover in leases, can a landlord just increase the rent as much as he wants, or is there a maximum?
In Quebec, you always have to use the rental board's calculator when deciding what the new rental amount will be. There's obviously a threshold that you can shift if you've renovated the kitchen, the bathroom, the floors. So depending on how much money you've put into the unit, you'll be able to increase a larger amount. But at the end of the day, that calculator is the be-all, end-all in Quebec.
Is there anything else a landlord is responsible for before moving day to ensure a smooth handover? Is it common to just leave the space vacant so that you can clean it? How does that work?
In terms of what's the responsibility, it really is just making sure that everything is in good working order, the keys are available so the tenant can move in. Obviously, if you want to go above and beyond, it's making sure the place is in a cleanly fashion, so making sure that there's been a deep clean before, making sure the paint's in good condition, obviously. But it's tough. A lot of the time, you've got people moving in and moving out on the exact same day, so you don't have much turnover time to really take care of a lot of these things. And that's why a lot of our units have more wear and tear than you necessarily like, right? Because a month of vacancy is usually losing anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 for that 1 month of rental income. So it just doesn't pay typically to try and do that.
Is there a reason why there's more vacancy this year, or people are a little more last minute? Is there a root cause to that?
I have not found it.
Well, the city has for years been advertising, if you don't have to move, don't. right? Because we've had supply issues with rental units that were
Yeah, because,
affordable.
But
No,
we
I
had
was
a
gonna-
lot more non-renewal. We had a significant number of people deciding this year they were not going to renew it. They were going to go find somewhere else. And it's probably because of the 5.9% rental increase. So if you were already paying, let's say, $2,000, I mean, it's a pretty big jump into the next threshold. And a lot of people said, you know what, we'll find something that's cheaper. We might have to concede on something, and off we go. And we saw a lot of that. But then we also saw people not jumping on things, which was surprising to us.
Interesting, which is weird because then you hear news reports about, women making multiple. I remember this. We talked about it a few weeks ago. It was a woman who had made multiple
offers.
offers,
Yeah,
and she was
exactly.
offering to pay several months' rent, and she was having trouble finding a place. Clearly, she needs to call LJ, right? Like,
It might be a budget constraint, right? If she was looking for places under $1,000, I mean, there really aren't that many places available left in Montreal for that price point. So there's obviously a price point thing to be played here, but market rents, there's tons of units available that are in good condition, that are well taken care of, that are ready to go.
are there some neighborhoods that are easier to move into than others right now?
The easiest thing to move into is the one that's going to have the most street parking access for you on moving day, because that's the other big challenge. A lot of our buildings are sixplexes, triplexes, stuff of that nature, right? So you've got a high density of people on a small street blocking that space off so that your moving truck can unload without the cars being there. That's always a fun puzzle to put together.
Yeah, a one-way street with parking on either side. You got a moving truck jamming up the center of the street. Everybody's mad at you and honking. Sounds
Welcome
fun.
to the neighborhood.
Yeah, everybody's going to love you. Okay, if you're ready to move right now, maybe you want to purchase a multiplex. Maybe you are ready to purchase an investment property. You can give LJ a call and you can give the Plex Doctor a call. 514-709-6397. Visit the website as well at plexdr.com. Coming up, our property of the week plus the answer to our trivia question. We will find out after we check traffic. The time is 12:45. So we're going to check in at the CJAD 800 Traffic Center with Jill Fitzgerald. This is Under One Roof MTL on CJAD 800. Thanks so much for spending some of your Sunday with us. We love it. We're with you until 1 p.m. If you ever have any questions or ideas for the show, text us, 514-790-0800. We do see them throughout the show, and we very much appreciate it. We always take some time each week to look at our property of the week. So, LJ, what do you have for us this week?
Are you looking for a bright and stylish condo in one of Montreal's most sought-after neighborhoods? Welcome to 775 Rue Osborne in Verdun, a beautifully renovated two-bedroom gem that's full of charm and natural light. Enjoy a modern kitchen, fresh flooring, a sunny private balcony, and a layout that just feels like home. Your steps from parks, top schools, the Green Line Metro, and all the buzz of Wellington Street. Offered at just $399,999, this one won't last.
Oh, I love Verdun in the summer, especially Wellington. The restaurants on Wellington, Villa Wellington.
What's your top restaurant?
Well, I love Villa Wellington.
Okay,
I
going
like
Peruvian. Very
food.
nice.
But there's a taco place like a
There's
block
also
away.
a pizza place.
Well
A
done?
Famous place.
Oh, that's new. Well done. So one
No,
big...
this is an old pizza place. I used to go and pick up pizza there. It's just mouth-watering.
Amazing. And they close it down. It's like a pedestrian walkway. It's beautiful in the
Where is
summer.
Osborne Street? I'm trying to visualize that.
Where is it? Let me get you.
Sorry.
Between Verdun and Bannatyne Street. I can give you the
We're done.
Verdun's not that big,
No,
but
no,
it's
it's not.
lovely, very easy to get to
Absolutely.
by public transit. Parking not so bad in Verdun, actually, pretty decent.
Yeah.
And you're close, and there's a lot of green space. So.
Yep, exactly. I have a lot of friends in Verdun because my family's from Verdun originally before they moved to Chateauguay.
Chateauguay.
That's the pipeline, right? You live in Verdun and you go to Chateauguay.
There you
That's
go.
how it is. Love it. Where do people go? Did you mention there was an open house or a listing people could check out?
We're actually doing an open house next weekend.
Next weekend,
So
okay.
next Sunday, not this weekend, not today. Don't run over today. Nobody will be there. I'm sorry. But next weekend we'll be hosting one, and you can check it out on our website, ljrealties.com.
Awesome. 775 Rue Osborne next Sunday. Check it out. Okay, our trivia question of the week. Lots of people knew the answer, and I'm glad because it was a bit of a trick question this week. What is the maximum amount a landlord can legally request for a security deposit for a residential lease in Quebec? Christine in Ville Saint Laurent knew the answer. It's $0.
Zip.
A landlord cannot legally require a security deposit in the province of Quebec. However, if I understand correctly, LJ, prospective tenants can offer a security deposit or a few months' rent to try and secure a spot that they really want, right?
More so because they know that they have, we'll call it dodgy credit, and that they might have a few rental board cases or something on their record. So in order to try and appease a landlord with the fact that they don't have the best candidature, if you will, they can try and offer a month's rent or 2 months' rent to try and supplement their application.
Would that actually help in your eyes? Like if somebody said, I'll pay the first 6 months rent, but they had a 570 credit score, would you be okay with that?
Let's say that the last time they had a late payment was 3 years ago, for example, and that I can see that they've really cleaned up their credit. They're working on getting it better. They had a couple of things that went to collection or back in the day, but at this point they've turned it around. They have a stable job, this, that, whatever, and they came and they were upfront about this, like, hey, by the way, I have bad credit because of this. This is what was happening in my life. We've now turned the page. This is how I'm doing now. You can see that have all these changes happening, and I'm willing to give you a deposit. I'd have that conversation for sure.
Because at the end of the day, the truth always comes out, right? It's numbers, right? And if you're going to run a credit check, you're going to see everything. So a lot of people have selective memories as to what has transpired over the last 2 or 3 years. And so in the mortgage business or with the rental business, just be upfront with us and we can manage it that way. But if there are a series of surprises, that's where it becomes a lot more challenging.
And it stays on your credit for a long time, right? 7 years, I think, if something goes to collections or you have an R9 or something like that, that's going to hang out for a while, right?
Oh,
Again,
yeah.
What's really important is to address things that have been taken care of, because sometimes things just stay on your credit report and you need to clean those things out.
Yeah, because sometimes the credit bureaus will forget to remove something they're supposed to remove.
Exactly.
So something could have gone to collections 10, 15 years ago and it's still hanging out on your credit report. It's actually not that difficult. You just contact Equifax or TransUnion and say, hey, can you remove this? And they'll take a look, do a little investigation, and they'll pull it off. And sometimes that'll boost your score by like 10, 15 points.
The things that we see the most are phone bills. I had this mobile phone. I lost it. I threw it out. I changed suppliers. I never addressed it. I missed a payment, and it just had a domino effect. Often we're cleaning up Bell, Videotron, Telus, Rogers, things off your credit reports that have been damaging your credit report unbeknownst to you over the last 2 or 3 years, which has been ruining your credit score because you forgot to make a payment, or when you closed your account, there was a balance of $1.27, and that has just ruined your credit. So it's often worth looking at your credit report once a year and to go line by line and clean out those things that could be damaging to you.
Can having things like a phone bill, for example, improve your credit? Like, I know it can hurt your credit if you don't pay it, but, you know, as people who are looking at credit reports regularly, do you look at somebody who has, 15 years with Bell or Telus and they've always paid on time? Is that something you're like, wow, this person's responsible? Or do you just ignore the phones altogether?
We tend not to look at the plus side. We look more at the negative side, unfortunately. But if you're new to Canada and you don't have any credit, it's good to have a couple of things, whether it's a credit card or whether it's a hydro bill or something that is actually showing that you're managing your payments responsibly and you're building your credit report in Canada.
A common complaint that I've heard from millennials and Gen Z, for example, is if you don't pay your rent and it goes to the rental board, it can end up on your credit report. But if you do pay your rent diligently, it wouldn't show up on your credit. Now, I know there's been talk in recent years about changing that. I think that was a Justin Trudeau proposition at one point.
Who?
If you pay your rent on time.
Who?
Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Did you see he was wearing green shoes on Tuesday?
The Adidas Gazelles when he met the king. Green and orange running shoes.
Dude, he looked a little shaggy and he was wearing green shoes.
Yeah. It was an interesting choice. If the discussion surrounding it, though, very much felt like Obama's tan suit. Remember when that was the most scandalous thing to happen in the United States politics scene?
There was a question there, though.
Yeah, there was a question. Where are we at on that? Like, people who pay their rent regularly, they're not reporting, the landlords are not reporting to the credit bureaus, right?
No, nobody is right now. The reality is, even if you don't pay your rent on time, it's tough to get it onto a credit bureau right now. You can send it to a collection agency. They can try to get it onto a credit bureau, but I haven't seen that happen. What you will see happen is you'll see a rental board record, and that's what we check in that point. And rental board record is also something that's going to follow you. If you tried to get out of a lease at some point and didn't for not the best reasons, that's on your record, and a lot more landlords are going to be a lot more reticent to rent to you in the future. So make sure that before you open up a case against your landlord, you really do have the upper hand and that you are in the right, and that you're going to be able to explain this to future landlords, because that will follow you for the rest of time.
Sometimes they'll also be asked to get a letter from your previous landlord to make sure that you were a good tenant. So, again, buyer beware. If you sign and you have to make 12 payments, 12 rent payments over the 12 months of your lease, make those payments, because that's going to follow you.
That pretty much does it for us for this week. We will be back next Sunday at 12 p.m. right here on CJD 800. Apparently, we're going to be talking about credit reports, Equifax, TransUnion.
It looks that way, yeah?
Looks that way. In the meantime, if you want to learn more about the guys in the show, go to the website, underoneroofmtl.com, or you can reach out to LJ, Fred, or Martin individually. Martin, where do people go to reach you?
So we talked a lot about reverse mortgages. You got questions about reverse mortgages, give us a call. Best way to get in touch with us is through the website. You can book us. Our numbers are there. Our email addresses are there, both mine and Fred's. So fredmartin.com. Often I ask Fred to say it the third time. He's not here. So fredmartin.com, fredmartin.com.
LJ, where do people go to get in touch with you?
You can check out my website, ljrealties.com. You can also reach out to us on Instagram or on YouTube or on all of the platforms under the handle LJ Aguinaga. That's LJAGUINAGA or LJ Realties. You can also call or text 514-500-4040.
If you missed anything, you can listen to this show in its entirety on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. My thanks to Cameron Brodeur on the board. His first time working with us. I think you did a fantastic job.
Good job.
Thanks to you for listening. For LJ, Fred, and Martin, I'm Robin. Have a great day.